Can you kindly explain the roles of our river commissions, such as the DRBC and the SRBC?
Certainly. So they are important partners for us in a variety of work. There's slight differences between them, but I think generally they have a focus on water quantity and water quality. We rely on them a lot in terms of operation of gauges. DRBC, in addition to that, DRBC has done some work for us in terms of groundwater monitoring in the southeastern portion of the state. DRBC is also an important partner for us as we look at, for example, and I know something that's of concern to some members, the federal government's look at the F.E. Walter Dam and providing us some of that core expertise that the Commission has to support the impact of changes to that dam would have on the salt line in Philly and other issues like that.
Okay. I have another member that I believe is going to speak to the dam, but I want to focus a little bit, if we may, on, you mentioned water quality. Do you assert that their responsibility and role is to note water quality and record water quality, or is it to regulate water quality?
So they have a special protections program under special protection water program under DRBC, where they do have a regulatory responsibility for water quality.
And Mr. Secretary, are there river commission functions that are not duplicative with DEP functions?
Yes, as I said, they operate the gauges. And in general, they are representative of, they provide a different perspective, right? Which is managing the entirety of the Delaware River watershed, the Ohio River watershed, the Susquehanna River watershed. So decisions that might be made from a quantity or quality perspective within the state, and frankly, a lot of our quantity requirements are relatively limited as a state. A lot of that falls within the compact commissions.
So mainly the quantity function differs from the purview of the DEP?
Correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Secretary, aside from their appropriation, where else do these agencies receive funding from?
So they receive, as you say, from our appropriation. In addition, we're funding through the Clean Water Fund, as I said, that groundwater study that the DRBC is engaged in, and then they receive other, I'm not sure what the totality of their funding is in terms of what other jurisdictions are providing or other grants that they're provided, but I'm sure that's
I've got a little bit more ground to cover, so I'll just plow right into it if you'll allow me. So do you acknowledge, Mr. Secretary, that the commissions, in particular DRBC, receive substantial dollars in the form of grants from outside agencies?
I'm not sure the amount of grant dollars. I wouldn't want to speculate. That would be something that I'm sure we could find out from the commissions.
Okay. And if you would look into that, I'd appreciate it. And as
Absolutely.
well, I can help you to substantiate that. And along that same theme, I want to assert that if an outside agency is controlling funding at one of our agencies, that perhaps that special interest or that agenda manifests at our state agency. Would you consider that to be a reality?
I don't think I understand the question. If you could repeat that or restate.
That if outside interests influence through funding our agency, such as the DRBC, do you think that that would impact their agenda?
I have no idea, honestly. I don't know what the specifics of that question are.
Well, I'll speak to it a little bit if you'll allow me to, because we have a particular circumstance where the Delaware River Basin is lobbying against a particular piece of legislation, namely House Bill 827. Do you feel as though that is proper and permissible, Mr. Secretary?
Honestly, I don't know the detail of it, so I wouldn't want to speak to it without knowing a bit more, frankly. 827.
If you would kindly look into that, that
Absolutely.
would be great. I appreciate that. And I'm going to end with this claim, Mr. Secretary, that when we allow activist interests to assert their will in Pennsylvania, that it makes Pennsylvania less competitive. And we are doing our residents an injustice by preventing them economic opportunity and by preventing them access to their own property. And I'll end with that.